Welcome into the OBR post-game show as your Cleveland Browns drop a bit of a heartbreaker in Mile High, 41-32. It was an interesting night. Pete Smith is with me here for the post-game show at the OBR. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on your way in or out. An offensive explosion from Jameis and Jerry Jeudy and what was, they said at the end of the game, Pete, the biggest revenge game in NFL history from a player going against their old team, 235 yards and a touchdown on 9 receptions. The passing game was good enough to put up 32 points and take the lead in the fourth quarter, but ultimately Jameis threw 2 bad interceptions late, and they gave the game up. He also threw a pick 6 earlier, so despite throwing for 497 yards, he goes for 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and the Browns lose. What are your initial thoughts here?
It's entertaining. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's unfortunate that you lose and you lose the way you do, but like, what else can you say about it? I mean, he did everything you could hope he could do for you offensively, but he also hands the other team 14 points. We've seen it before. He's a more unhinged version of Joe Flacco. And we almost got – it's insane. We almost got both the Houston Texans performance in the regular season and the playoffs in one game because Jerry Jeudy, if Jameis Winston hits the one post route in the first half, Jerry Jeudy breaks the record that Amari Cooper would have had last year.
He's over 300 yards, yeah.
He throws the 2 pick sixes that are both egregious. They're both cardinal sins as far as the quarterback position is concerned. And what's fascinating is it's not like they were Jameis Winston trying to be too greedy down the field. They were
misses.
They were a terrible evaluation from a risk reward standpoint. In other words, if he completes either of those passes, okay, like they were 8 yards. So just from that standpoint, it was really bad. Far hash, throwing an out route, leaving it inside. I mean, you shouldn't throw far hash out route unless it's wide open anyway. But then leaving it inside is just death. But I mean, on the other hand, like here we are. The Browns are now 3-9. They are not a playoff team, which was almost impossible anyway. But if they are not a playoff team, what do they need? They need to show you the young guys are getting opportunities and developing. And what do you see? Jerry Jeudy has the game of his life. And I'll mention more about Jeudy in a minute. Elijah Moore continues to be very, very good for this group. Michael Woods has the best game of his career, first game of this season. David Njoku, mix of good and bad. So you get that element. The Jerry Jeudy point I would just emphasize is, and they talked about this a little bit on the broadcast, Jerry Jeudy had the greatest game he's ever had in the NFL, and yet he was pissed that they were losing. Which is what you want to see. You want to see a guy who is more concerned about winning the game than necessarily his individual stats, including at the very end when he chases down the last interception and makes the tackle. Those are things that they help you validate the decision. I mean, he's already gone well above and beyond in terms of making the trade look good and make the extension look great. All these things look really good, but that's the extra effort where, I suspect the Browns are going to go in that film room and they're going to put that clip on and say, look at Jerry Jeudy going to chase down that play and try to make a play, tries to punch the ball out, those type of things. So those things are all things that I can take away from and be happy with on offense. Defensively, there were certainly some issues, but ultimately the game was defined by the Browns leaving points on the field and then giving away points. And you're going to lose. And that's the thing that with this Browns team right now, they can beat anybody, but they also have the capacity to absolutely beat the hell out of themselves.
What about the defense, Pete? I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat complaining about the defensive performance. They needed to get a stop at some point, and they never really. I mean, they got, I guess, outside of Denzel Ward making a couple fantastic plays on interceptions. I'm not going to say they were bad as a whole, but they gave up a ton. I mean, they also gave up a ton of yardage and points, as you see.
True. They also did get 2 stops in the end that the Broncos conceded to field goals. If I was the Broncos, I thought they should have gone for both of them. But the Browns got stops. They settled for field goals. And ultimately, you were in a situation where the Browns had the ball with the ability to drive down the field and take the lead. And obviously, part of the reason they were down is because their field goal kicker missed the first one, which contributed. But look, there's plenty of things I can criticize on defense. Martin Emerson struggling, continues to have a nightmare season. I was frustrated with Isaiah McGuire constantly trying to rush inside and giving Bo Nix the ability to roll out. And the Browns didn't get punished for it. And Bo Nix did some just borderline insane decisions, like throwing all the way across his body to Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's like, what are you doing? And they tried to take a deep shot down the field that they were able to defend. But if he was if he was, as a rookie, it's tough, but he should have either taken off or just dumped the ball off to somebody in those situations. And that's where I sit there and go, look, man, Isaiah, I love you, but you can't. This makes it easy for me to keep you off the field. Okoronkwo on that 18-yard run where Julian McLaughlin cuts all the way back, that's on him. He took a terrible angle. That should have been a tackle for loss as the backside end playing the cutback, and he just took a terrible angle and didn't make that play. And then there were just some things the Broncos did well. I mean, I can't say the Browns were – I think the Broncos deserve a fair amount of credit. And then the one thing I will continue to harp on, and I'm sure the numbers favor the Browns in this. Yeah. 3rd and long, deep in their own end, and the Browns run inverted cover 2. You get the absolute perfect throw.
They kept doing it again. They did it again after that too, Pete.
Yeah. So and this is a thing I've had a beef with for a while. And again, I'm sure if Jim Schwartz has numbers that say this is great for them, but this was Matt Stafford to Puka Nacua last year, right in the perfect spot. And now you're letting a rookie do it, easy touchdown. You're just giving away points. And I understand that, Jim Schwartz is aggressive and, risk reward and all that. But like that particular coverage just seems to be at the heart of this. And like people want to be mad at the DBs. That's on the DC 100%. To me, you make the call and you're asking Jordan Hicks to drop back. Denzel Ward can't get over there fast enough. That's on the defensive coordinator. So there are certainly things where I can sit there and be frustrated with defensively, but ultimately, in part because the Browns offense was able to produce so many points, even as they left points on the board. Missed that wide open post shot to Jerry Jeudy on the first drive of the game. Jameis overshoots David Njoku, had really good leverage, which then led to the missed field goal. Nevertheless, when the Browns needed to get stops, they got stops. And again, I put some of that on the Broncos for just taking the foot off the gas. I still can't believe they didn't go for it on the 4th and 1. I can't believe they didn't go on 4th and 2. Took 2 field goals, and had the Browns come back and won that game, to me, it would have been justice for fortune favoring the bold. And Kevin Stefanski, I thought, was really good in this game in terms of handling his timeouts, understanding when to be aggressive. There were a couple really key situations where Kevin Stefanski did the right thing. The anti-Eberflus in the first half,
he took the timeout.
They're trying to hurry up.
Yeah.
And they've got a call in, and then Jameis tries to change the play, which he shouldn't do. But then Stefanski immediately realizes what's going on and calls a timeout. Now, you lose some of that time, and it's frustrating to lose that time. But ultimately, they made the right decision. They're able to save the clock. I think they lose like 9 seconds or something like that, which is irritating, but ultimately not debilitating. If they save that timeout and they get the playoff, then they have what would have been a timeout down right by the goal line and potentially have the run on the table to be able to utilize.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, they do use the timeout. They use the other 2 timeouts and still score. Good process, ultimately. And then the second half, 3rd and 10, any number of coaches while the play clock's going down, and I put some of this on Jameis. I think he talks too much in the huddle at points, even though there is some operational stuff where they need to go faster. Realize the clock's going down. 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, what's the difference? Like, it's not a huge deal. And Troy Aikman was quick to point this out. Take the penalty. They pick up the first down on the next play, and I still can't believe Jerry Jeudy caught that ball, given the fact the ball was tipped. They get the first down. You get to keep all your timeouts and score. Ultimately, it didn't matter, but still, that's really good process in terms of what the head coach is doing. I thought, man, the combination of Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey has been really good in dialing up some stuff in the passing game. I wish the running game was better. Nick Chubb, look, man, I love him. He's not Nick Chubb right now. I'm not ruling it out, but he, other than the screen pass and one good run, there's just no juice. He's just very sluggish power runner, which can be effective, but not with the way the Browns are not able to block well. So right now, your best running back is Jerome Ford. He had some good and bad, but ultimately now you're in a situation where it looks a lot like last year, where it's just you're dropping back and you're throwing a million times. And that's ultimately going to lead to some of these situations. Now, again, that doesn't excuse anything Jameis did on any of the 3 interceptions. They were all unforced errors. But it also produced a ton of points, a ton of offense. And they set records on a number of fronts in this game, which was,
yeah,
again, fun. It sucks to lose, but fun. And, it puts a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth going, not only did they lose and they lose in the way they did, but now you've got 6 days to turn around and then you get to host or play against the Steelers on the road.
Let me ask you this. I want to point this out real quick. I saw in this chat we're saying we need new wide receivers. That's one thing I'm not worried about. Jerry Jeudy was fantastic. Njoku is amazing. He drops the ball too often, but he's still an incredible weapon. And Elijah Moore for 100 yards tonight with a terrific game, 8 for 111 or whatever. So Mike Woods was excellent when you needed him in replacement. I'm not saying they don't need anybody, but I wouldn't complain about the wide receivers tonight of all things. I thought the wide receivers were very good. The ultimate question here, Jerry Jeudy was unbelievable. 9 catches, 225 yards.
He's getting better. Like again, a couple weeks ago, I knocked him for, even though he had a great game against the Saints, I knocked him for letting the ball get into his body on the one deep ball that could have been a big game and got poked out as a result. And now he's just plucking the thing out of the air really confidently. I don't know how much of that was just him taking that moment to heart and going, I could have had this if I'm more aggressive at the catch point. But
yeah,
between last week and this week, he's just been unbelievable at the catch point. So great after the catch. That's my one criticism of Elijah Moore, who I do hope the Browns re-signed on a 1-year deal of some sort, because this is the second week in a row where he's had a great toe tapping catch right by the sideline.
Yeah.
But my God, is Elijah Moore a spaz with the ball in his hands. He goes from very polished route runner, gets open, catches the ball, and just loses his mind.
Well, he goes backwards half the time.
Yes, it's very annoying. But, nevertheless, he gets open and he catches the ball. Now, he's never going to be a big contested catch guy, but he knows how to get open. And Jameis Winston can find him. And that's without Cedric Tillman, who I think is going to be a really nice player in this offense. And to your point, I think the Browns are really good at wide receiver, but if they can find a truer number one, I'm not going to argue against it. But right now, that's certainly not something we're sitting here. Again, the receivers look fast enough to run the offense. I think. Is that definitive yet that the wide receivers are fast enough to run the offense? I would like to check with Jason Lloyd and find out if they're fast enough, but I think that's enough to run the offense. So, we went into the season in, early part, and obviously with Deshaun Watson, everybody's sitting there with the wide receivers are a problem. Right now, the wide receivers are the strength of the offense, which is a hell of a turnaround and a good investment on their part. But obviously, they have other issues. The offensive line is still not very good, even though they were reasonably effective in pass protection for the most part. Jermaine Ifedi's still not good. Don't lie to yourself. He's OT6 for a reason, but they were okay. Jack Conklin got beat a couple times. The Broncos are good. This is the thing I think it's lost in this. The Broncos defense is really good.
They are. Except for Levi Wallace.
Yes. Which was another thing I thought was really smart on the Browns' part. The Saints,
they could have gotten there more.
The Broncos had an opportunity with both Delpit and Ward off the field, and they kept running the ball. The Browns said, hey, Levi Wallace sucks. We're going to keep going after him endlessly. And they did. And it continued to pay off. And then they mixed in some opportunities where they were able to get Patrick Surtain and get him as well. But I figured the Browns would be able to move the ball reasonably well, but I did not, we're sitting here mad they didn't score 40 some points.
Right.
And they easily scored the 30 some they did, which is, pretty good. So that part of it, there's a lot of positive to take out of it, but still we are sitting here in a situation where you look at this and you go, Jameis Winston is exactly what Joe Flacco was, just 10 years younger and a little bit stronger, whatever. But he's also, again, I've said this all along, he's just Joe Flacco to the extremes on both sides. There's even more exciting plays and more explosive plays with Jameis Winston. And then there's even more dumb stuff that will just drive you nuts. So
there are times,
not the answer, but he's, if they play better defense, if they are able to run the ball with any consistency, they would win a hell of a lot more games. We'll see what they ultimately decide to do here, but it does give them the flexibility not to force chasing after a quarterback, which is all I want. If they love a quarterback, so be it. But as long as they are not forced to take one because they don't feel good about their options, I'm fine.
Okay, that's where I wanted to get to. Is like, okay, listen, there are times he's fantastic. Great touch. He makes, 5, 6 really impressive reads and throws in a row. The first interception was really weird. You know what I mean? Like Benito left the guy behind him. He was just begging for him to throw it. He didn't see him. It was a terrible decision, right? But like it was a weird situation. And then the last one was, I thought, the more egregious of any of them, because it was so far behind. Even if he makes that throw to Moore and he makes it an accurate one to the outside, at least it's not getting intercepted. He throws it was like 10 feet behind him. You know what I mean? Or else the corner doesn't even get his hands on it. So, and then the last one, I don't even know what happened. He just didn't see Barton. He didn't have to throw it to Njoku. He had Whitebeard open on the pylon on that last play. But anyways, the ultimate question about Jameis is, so you still feel like when you watch a game like this and it's explosive offense and it was fun to watch offensively, take away 3 passes, right? 4 passes with an incompletion to Judy or whatever. But do you want to say, like, at the end of this, like, you think you can go win games with him next year?
Yeah. I mean, of course you can. Like, he threw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yes, he threw 2 touchdowns to the other team. It's just bad. But the Browns can't run the ball at all. And the fact that they can't allows the defense to do certain things, which just give you problems. They are consistently able to pin their ears back and rush the passer with really no worry. And that changes the clock, that changes some other things and forces some throws. Again, that the interception he threw trying to hit, I guess, Akins, it's just risk reward. It's a 2-yard pass. There's no benefit. Just dirt it. Move on. Outside throw, opposite hash. It's just a bad bet. Throw it over his head. Move on to the next play. And those are things Jameis Winston doesn't really do. He does not give up on plays, and that is a benefit at times because there were times where he was able to extend plays and find guys down the field, which is great. But he doesn't know when to quit. And that can be a problem. And then I think on the Njoku thing, he predetermined it. Now that you got leverage, a little more air if he throws it to the pylon as opposed to he basically threw the exact same pass Michigan's quarterback threw to Jack Sawyer, where he just needed any amount of air. It's a touchdown. But the fact he didn't gives the defensive player a chance to make the play of his life. So yeah, I mean, like clearly you can win with Jameis Winston. You can also lose with Jameis Winston, just like you could with Joe Flacco. It is absolutely no different, just more extreme. So if the Browns decide that Jameis Winston's their path forward, and it's becoming harder and harder to view it any other way, I mean, we'll see. Like, I don't want to see the Browns trade even any, a 7th-round pick for the rotting corpse of Kirk Cousins, for example. That it allows you to focus on everything else. And for them, it's about rejuvenating the offensive line and getting back to being able to run the football and control the line of scrimmage both ways. Better run game equals, but obviously gives you more options, keeps the defense off balance, allows you to stay on schedule. It also just improves your pass protection anyway, so that you are then in a situation where the quarterback you do want, assuming they don't like one in this class, you are then putting them in a position where they're able to succeed. You want to put them in the best situation possible. So that, that when they make that decision, when they make that call, when they go after their guy, that they can plug them in and feel great about it, as opposed to, well, we're going to, plug them in and try to figure out the rest of these things. Now, obviously, look, free agency, Andrew Berry has a specific goal in mind, and he always wants to address all the needs there. So you go to the draft focusing on talent, which if he does, that would be certainly helpful. And maybe that's a situation where they do take care of the offensive line enough to allow them to take one of those rookie quarterbacks and feel good about it. But at least for right now, I think Jameis Winston gives you a more than competitive floor next year to be in the mix.
Okay. So that answers my question about him. Is there a world where, like, there's a limit to how far Jameis can take you, right? He's not going to win you a Super Bowl. He's going to win you. He can win you X amount of games. I guess my question is, they want to compete next year. can Stefanski and Dorsey do something that nobody else has done in this league and get him to take the easy stuff and not make some of these throws?
Well, probably not. I mean, I think at this point, Jameis Winston is who Jameis Winston is. I mean, he's been in the league for 10 years. Now he did reinvent himself over the past couple of years with getting the ball out much faster with the Saints. And I'm never going to say that he can't get better, but there does come a point when you are who you are. And look, the same thing would have been said about Baker Mayfield in his time with Cleveland, and now he's obviously much better with the Bucs. So I don't want to rule it out, but it's just really hard to believe that he's all of a sudden going to be a different quarterback. But this is the best Jameis has ever really played as well. So there's upside both ways in terms of Jameis Winston could get better on his own, but clearly Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey can get good football out of him. But obviously it comes at the risk. Just as it did with Joe Flacco, we saw it last year.
Yeah. Okay. And more time with them, I think, also ultimately gets you a better result and more. I guess, you can't really complain about the offense. The offense has looked tremendous, right? So except for the running game. But that's more of a blocking issue, which needs to be addressed, as you mentioned, in the offseason. All right. A couple other things during this game. You mentioned it earlier. Martin Emerson, I don't know. We haven't really talked about this, but he just looks lost at times or steps slower than he has in the past. I don't know if he's injured or what, but at times he's just, I don't know what happened to the guy that was so confident and all over receivers everywhere they went last year and the year before that. He just seems really lost and slow at times, and I'm not really sure what happened.
Yeah, it's tough to give you a concrete answer. I think some of it is not touching his technique. I think some of it is he's probably not 100% healthy.
Okay.
And then some of it is mental. I expect it's all of the above. That is how that position can go. Last year, Patrick Surtain had a nightmare year. Now he's arguably the best corner in football. Sauce Gardner was the best corner in football, hands down, last year. This year, he looks miserable. There is an inherent volatility to that position. We've seen it with Denzel Ward even. Denzel Ward is having a phenomenal season. We'll see what we find out about this latest issue. Injury-wise, but he's also had years where you're just like, he does not look right. And at that position, if you are a half a step slow or wrong or whatever, you're going to get beat and it's going to be bad. So, you haven't paid Martin Emerson anything. So ultimately, I think you're in a situation where you're probably going to let this play out a little bit more.
Of course, yeah.
Unless they offer him like a below sort of what they feel is like a
below market,
aspirational, but reasonably below market deal, which is still a significant raise for Emerson, and he wants to take it. But it's more than likely you're just going to ride into the final year of his contract and see what happens. And maybe the Browns have a better answer for the Emerson situation than we do. Obviously, they have more information, but that is just such a difficult position to play. And that's why the Browns draft corners every year, why you can't have too many, why you're always trying to churn and keep looking. And we'll see if the Browns change anything, but at least right now it's tough. You saw Ward go out and you're immediately with Cameron Mitchell. So it's, they've only got so many guys they can plug in there. And the one thing I would say is this game we saw the Browns desperately missed Juan Thornhill in this game. Rodney McLeod was not very good. And Ronnie Hickman is a nice player. I think he's going to continue to develop, but I think you saw why Juan Thornhill not being out there hurt you on some of these deep balls. He's faster. He just seems to be better at that true center field spot. And Rodney McLeod has done some very nice things for this team. I think he's obviously very suited to be the third safety. And at times I think he got exposed in this one. So it's a tough spot when you are constantly dealing with the injuries, but it is what it is. Nobody's feeling sorry for the Browns, and they've got to go out there and play.
Yeah. I mean, what we've seen has been a drastic improvement on offense. So, and tonight, there's been some comments about Chubb. You already mentioned it. Listen, there was a play on a zone read play where they gave the ball to Ford and he juked inside and ran for about 15 or 20 yards in Jerome Ford. And right after that, I'm like, it was like after watching Chubb run for 3 plays, he just can't move laterally the way we're used to seeing him move laterally, right? Like it's all straight forward. He can't really cut and move or have the burst the way that we're used to. Not saying he won't get it back. And I think the Browns should bring him back just to have at least in here. But they ultimately are going to need another running back at some point, don't you think?
Yeah, I think you need to have as many options as you can. We haven't seen Deontay Foreman in a while. Pierre Strong helps on special teams. That might be the reason. But and he was not to say Deontay Foreman exactly let this thing on fire when he was in there either. But yeah, you can't have too many spots. But obviously, so much of that comes down to doing better up front. But to your point, I don't think it's just the lateral stuff. I just don't see the burst from Nick Chubb at this point. And again, I'm not going to speculate that he can't ever get it back or what's going to happen.
Right.
But I'm starting to get to the point where I think whatever he's going to be, if he's going to come back, it's not going to be until full
next year
and into the next year. And I think it's worth betting on that for any number of reasons. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about adding running backs, one, they could end up re-signing Nyheim Hines. Obviously, that never panned out for this year with his knee. And then this draft is going to be loaded at running back. So certainly there's value in doing that, especially when you have 11 picks or projected to have 11 picks. That certainly it's worth taking a fly, if nothing else, a flyer at some point on somebody. I don't think it makes much sense for the Browns to take one super early, but there's just too many good ones not to be able to try to find something that can add a little bit more to your rushing attack.
Yeah, I think they have to add somebody just because, we've talked about it before. And like you said, he's missing the burst or whatever you saw. I think at times maybe I don't think he does move as well laterally as at least Ford does right now. Mm-hmm. But either way, moving forward, I think it's always the season after the season from these injuries that guys really start to look like themselves again. So he needs more time, A. And I'm, like you said, I'm willing to bet on that. And then B, as we've talked about, with the way the NFL has gone this year, the running back is making a little bit of a comeback here. And you need to have their run game was just not effective enough at all tonight. They threw it 58 times, Pete. And that goes to the offensive line too. You need a left tackle. Where do you start where do we start with the run game? You need another back and Ford and Chubb going into next year, in my opinion. But then if you're looking at the offensive line, how do you want to go into next year? I know you want Conklin, you want Teller. You probably need a center.
Yeah, I don't know what their options are really at center, like free agency wise, but I don't love the draft options at center, at least right now. So I don't love what they're getting from the center spot. Obviously, Joe Bitonio is not healthy and is old. So at the very least, you have to draft another guard. If he were to retire, then you also would probably need to sign a guard. And then the left tackle, you need more tackle help. You are obviously hoping that DeJuan Jones crushes his recovery and rehab. But you need more tackle help anyway. You need tackle help because DeJuan Jones has shown a tendency to get nicked up, and Jack Conklin has obviously gotten hurt. So you just need to get more guys in the pipeline. Even though I'd be more than happy to get Akeem Adeniji back whenever he gets healthy. But that's where you've got to start. So that's 3 spots right there that you've got to address. Now, to me, I don't think that is a huge lift. But the tackle situation will be interesting because the draft is going to be curious at that spot. I don't love the options there, but it's early. It's obviously just turned December. So we'll see. Guard, there should be no shortage of options. And that's, to me, the more important position for what the Browns are trying to do. Tackle is certainly important. You need to have at least average tackle play, but guards are where you really get your movement off the line of scrimmage, and protect the quarterback's feet, which all quarterbacks hate having a muddy pocket. So being able to get more push up front, and I'm certainly not giving up on Zach Zinter. I think he's got to obviously get better and improve his functional strength, but that's part of it. I just think they also need another guard, and they need to keep adding young talent to coach up. So yeah, I mean, that's where it starts. More talent at running back will help, but certainly it's just whatever the vision is for Andy Dickerson and the run game that they want to install. Obviously, a lot more gap, double teams, that stuff. They need to truly bring it about. Now, part of the reason I think Wyatt Teller should stick around, and we'll see how he finishes out the season, is because he is built for that style of offense. He's built to double team and drive people off the ball, and that's also what Jack Conklin can do that as well. So those are sort of fits in terms of style. Obviously, they have to play up to that, but that becomes a big part of it, and just get more of those guys.
Do you have any concerns about what the Browns are running run game wise moving forward? We like what the pass game has become with, Dorsey, Stefanski in this look, and obviously that'll morph somewhat depending on who's playing quarterback next year. But, are you okay with what they're running run game wise? It's just they're unable to execute it, or what?
I like what they want to do. They just need to have the beef to do it.
The guys to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, you could run, you with Nick Chubb, if he becomes Nick Chubb again, you can run stuff like wide zone, but I don't think they have the personnel for it anymore.
Sure.
Especially if you're going to use DeJuan Jones. That's just not a good fit for him. So they are fit to down block. They are fit to double team. They are fit to do those and pull more heavy gap stuff. Now, there can be some zone in there as well, some zone with a kick. That stuff's fine, but you're still ultimately trying to move dudes off the ball, win with angles, as opposed to block out in space as much. I think that's their best path forward. It fits with the RPO stuff they like to do, which I think can be a nice little benefit to this offense as well.
Defensively, along the defensive line, there are guys, you already talked about this a little bit. Miles tonight, I don't know if he is hurt again with the hamstring. Late in the game, he played hard. He was there making pressures at times and played the run well at times. No sacks. And thoughts on his game and the rest of the defensive line, because Jaleel McLaughlin had his way. Youngstown State's own.
Miles didn't do a whole lot other than the one pressure that led to the interception, made a big play there. Look, it's so difficult to know. He obviously has the big game against the Steelers, but what his foot situation is, and we don't know what the deal with that is. He pulls up at the hamstring. He's still making plays in the run game. But yeah, it wasn't the, outstanding player that, you would want him to be in this type of game. They moved him around a little bit more. They were more than happy to use extra help on him. In terms of the rest of the defensive line, Shelby Harris and Dalvin Tomlinson had some moments. Again, I already mentioned my frustrations with Isaiah McGuire, who I think is a really talented player. Okoronkwo, it's just not a good year for him, and I don't think this game was very helpful. I thought I saw more from the kid they just got from Cam Thomas, who is a guy I actually liked in the draft, even though he has done nothing in his career to this point.
Ellison?
No, Cam Thomas, who the Browns claimed off waivers, and former San Diego State guy.
Yep.
But ultimately, a lot of it was just run fits, and I give the Broncos credit. They did a really good job in terms of using cutback runs that sort of forced the Browns to, and this is what has killed the Browns in the past, forced the Browns to sort of declare themselves, and specifically the linebackers. So where Jordan Hicks or Mahmoud Diabate or Winston Reed would go and fill their appropriate gap, the Broncos would run a play that sort of then gave McLaughlin the ability to then cut back to an open lane where these guys had already sort of declared where they were going to go. Now, some of that is a real credit to the Broncos offensive line, which I think did well for themselves for the most part.
Yeah.
They're big, they're physical, and it was sort of back and forth in terms of there were plays. There were plays where they did a great job and made some big tackles in the backfield, but then there were plays they got gashed. And again, this is all unfortunately too often the story with the Jim Schwartz defense, where you love the big plays, but you hate the gashes. And some of those again come down to not taking the appropriate angles or run fits. I already mentioned the Okoronkwo one, where I think that would have been a tackle for loss if he takes the appropriate angle. Instead, 18-yard gain. So yeah, those things are really frustrating. And again, clearly this team misses JOK. There's no question about that. And they are, I really like what Mamadou Diabate can be. He's just inconsistent. Like, he is really exciting, but when he's wrong, he's really wrong, and that can get beat at points.
It felt like Rodney McLeod had a little bit of a tough night. As I know you mentioned Rodney Hickman earlier, but McLeod a couple of times coming up to play the run just kind of got froze.
Yeah, I thought he was awful. Like I said, I thought this was a game that showed you there are a lot of people who don't like Juan Thornhill for whatever reason, and because I think a lot of it has to do with what they ask him to do, is play that true center field, and he's not. By no means am I considering him a great tackler, but I think he's just infinitely better than Rodney McLeod is at this stage in his career. So yeah, I think that they missed him, and unfortunately, this calf issue keeps propping up, which is another reason people don't like him. Which I understand, the injury stuff is really frustrating, but I also think he's been a good player when he's been in the lineup and really helped them. And I think we saw some of that in this game. I think there were a couple times on particularly some of those deep crossers to Cortland, where I think he has a little bit more range in some of those things. And there were some other issues. The Browns played a whole lot of zone in this game. And got exploited times, which, some of that's just going to happen, but as a product of playing zone. I think the Browns were better this year than they were last year in terms of game plan defensively against Sean Payton. Like, even though the Browns gave up fewer points last year, between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, I think the Browns were in a blender the first half last year, and they were really caught off guard. And I think they did a better job this year of sort of staying with it. Now, ultimately, they gave up some plays, gave up some points, unfortunately, but I think they were more up to the task, even though you sort of look at the scoreboard, you go, how could you possibly say that about the defense? I actually thought they were better. I just think the Broncos were also better on offense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it was mentioned in the chat a couple times. Denzel Ward, was just phenomenal. He's just a phenomenal NFL cornerback when he is seeing the game like he was tonight. He was tremendous in coverage. The first interception is just an amazing play to get your hand on it and be able to deflect the ball in the air like that. The second one was just really well played as well, on what was a silly throw by Nix.
Sportsmanship. That was sportsmanship. He knew that they should have called the penalty on Jameis Winston's helmet-to-helmet contact, and he said, look, I understand. They should have called this. I'm going to be a sportsman and give them the ball back.
Yeah. But, I mean, what can you say about Denzel? He's been fantastic all year. Like you said, it's a fickle position, right? Cornerback is, as you mentioned earlier, about the guys that you named. But, Denzel tonight, you just got to – he was tremendous. And we asked guys to make plays. He made plays tonight for sure, all over the field. So,
look, this is what the Browns are right now. They have some really good players, and they have some holes. And some of those holes are created by injury, and some of those holes are created by the Browns just aren't good enough at certain positions, whether that is players that need – positions that just need to be addressed, or they are guys who are just not playing well. Like Martin Emerson is the number one guy where you're sitting here going, coming into the season, you are sitting here going, oh man, he's going to have a great year. And he just hasn't. And I don't think you give up on him. I don't know. No, we'll see. Maybe the Browns will be more aggressive at defensive back than I would be in this draft. But I would still take a corner. There's a couple I really like. But I still think you play this out and go, we believe Martin Emerson's going to get this turned around and have a better year. Ultimately, he's going to have to prove that one way or the other.
Real quickly here, let's do this. Core Home Fitness, folks. It's almost Christmas time. New Year's resolutions, getting fit, all that stuff you want to do at the New Year's that you tell yourself you're going to do. Actually, go do it this year, or buy it. Maybe you know a friend or family member or somebody that wants to get fit, get not happy with the way they look and wants to improve. You can do so at Core Home Fitness. CoreHomeFitness.com sponsors the post-game and pre-game show and more at the OBR. You can check them out at CoreHomeFitness.com. They have assortment of lifting equipment, especially their top-rated adjustable dumbbells by the New York Times and Men's Health. They're also rated a best buy by Consumer Reports. They have videos, other products. You can get benches, adjustable benches, the Glute Drive Plus Fight Master. Crush your goals in 2025. They've got a U.S.-based support team, fast shipping, hassle-free returns, you name it. They know what they're doing. Again, check out CoreHomeFitness.com, sponsor of the OBR streaming network here. And makes a great gift for a family member, friend, or yourself as you look to improve in 2025. All right, Pete. This game, it's unfortunate they didn't win, but I mean, they shouldn't have flexed the Browns out of prime time. They're crazy. The Browns are electric, baby. They are electric for prime time. I mean, they've made two of the most entertaining games I've seen in prime time all year long. Last Thursday, tonight, people were abuzz about this game as well. Jameis, all the points. Jerry Jeudy going crazy on Denver revenge spot. It was a lot of fun in a loss. And certainly the Browns do have holes to fill. But what we have seen from this team since Winston has taken over, the fight, the team played hard all the way through for Stefanski last week. Tonight, I think you're seeing guys that are getting better and stepping up, especially in that wide receiver room and on the defense in certain places. This was a fun game to watch offensively. I keep coming back to Winston. I want them to be able to compete next year. I would just want them to be able to maybe get a little bit better version of what we saw from him tonight. You know what I mean? Like just those split-second decisions. And it's so hard to change that because that's what he's been for so long. But like, if you're going to make him your bridge, right? Like he just can't make one of those interceptions. Like he makes the interception in the first half and he gets it right back right away. He goes right down the field. Mm-hmm. He gets it right back. He had the moxie, the wherewithal, he puts together a hell of a drive to go right down the field and score and get them right back in the game. But you can't do that in the fourth quarter, right? You know what I mean? So like mm-hmm. it's spots, it's timing. And I worry about games ending like this next season.
You're going to have games that end like this next season. It's just the nature of the beast. The thing is, like, if you do the things to improve the team overall,
there's less of them.
You're going to have a whole lot more wins as well. But Jameis Winston is the NFL's dream. He is parity in a body. He keeps everybody in the game, which, again, Joe Flacco did the same thing last year. It's the same stuff. It's just Jameson's exciting plays happen to be a little bit more exciting, and his brain dead plays are even more brain dead. Like he just takes you to the furthest extremes possible. But if the Browns are better on defense, if the Browns are able to run the football, if the Browns are able to protect better, they're going to win a whole lot more football games than they did this year. And Troy Aikman harped on this in the game that it's something you've talked about. Like, what would their record be if Winston played the whole season? And it would certainly be better.
Yeah.
And they're probably still in, I don't know if they make the playoffs. They probably don't, but they're at least in the mix. And the biggest thing that we've seen is, we go from people accusing this team of quitting against the Saints to they're just fighting like hell They beat the Steelers fighting like hell. They lose this game fighting like hell, but they are back to being that team that fights like hell for 60 minutes. And that's what you want them to be. And, the Browns Kevin Stefanski has been really good about winning on the margins. And this year they are not, in part because the kicker's not kicking very well. And they're giving away too many points. But I think they can fix a lot of those things in the offseason. Or just to be better at them and be able to be competitive. Now, that may result in either you just miss the playoffs next year or you get to the first round and get knocked out if you just roll it back with Jameis as your starter all year. But so much depends on their evaluation of this class and what they think about the quarterback position, because if they don't think the guy is there, then don't force it. Like, at least a lot of people won't be satisfied with Jameis Winston going into next year as sort of the option. At that point, I would say hope that DTR gets a whole lot better. And I expect the Browns are going to draft a quarterback at some point with the 11 picks. It's just a question of who and when, who and what that guy is. So, we'll see what happens. Again, at the very least, what were we talking about earlier in the season? This team was unwatchable, awful, and so much of it was the life was being sucked out of everything. With Deshaun Watson, and that is
I agree.
And it's just
the opposite.
It's just like last year, where once they got past that part, and even last year when they were 4-1 with Watson at quarterback, they just have a fight that is at least entertaining to watch. Now they've got to do it better.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a defense that and we've seen this defense be great, if you come back with some different personnel and some different concepts and that fit your personnel better, and you put together a defense that plays, top 5, top 10 type defense. We saw it last year. We've seen it at times this year, right? You just need more consistent play from there, and you need better offensive line and running game, because you can't throw it 58 times with Jameis and hope that he doesn't throw a couple interceptions, because it's going to happen if you put it up 58 times. So, I think that it is an option. I'll continue to monitor it. I think that it should be an option if they don't see the guy in this draft. I don't think either of us have really dug into the draft class a whole ton, but initial reaction to it is that there's nobody that jumps off the page that I think would be a tremendous fit for what they're doing. Or what? Go ahead.
Well, listen, I think
Cam Ward,
very controversial, because there are people who think the Browns would love Shedeur Sanders and what he does. I think the Browns would absolutely love Cam Ward. Now, that's not to say that Cam Ward is necessarily that. What I would say is that doesn't necessarily mean that the Browns think he is so good that they would, either trade up or that they feel good about him being worth the pick, which they would have. I'm just saying, from what I watch with Cam Ward and what I see with the Browns that have had success at quarterback, Cam Ward does a lot of things that Joe Flacco does well. He does a lot of things that Jameis Winston does well, and he will do some of the same boneheaded crap that both of them have done. But he's also got an electric arm. He can carve up a defense. He's played a ton of football. Now, my biggest knock on him is he looks so much of how he moves around and size and everything else looks eerily like Deshaun Watson. And other than his arm motion is very unique. Sort of looks like Phillip Rivers, but the ball just flies out of his hand. But you watch him make throw, Jordan Reed.
I just watched him play the Syracuse game, though.
Huh?
I just watched him play that Syracuse game this weekend. So
he's phenomenal. It's just unbelievable. Jordan Reed of ESPN has absolutely nailed it. He will make one or two throws out of every 10 where basically one of every 10 throws will be insane. But he's like, but 8 of them will be wow throws. They are incredible. Even in games that they've struggled, he is really, really impressive.
But I think that's what you have in Jameis. I mean, I'm incredibly impressed by Jameis most of the time.
I will be very curious to see if Cam Ward, what he does for the postseason stuff. It's really the fact that they lost that game to Syracuse, which was not his fault by any stretch. hurts because I wanted to see him go to the ACC's championship, and I was really hoping he'd get to go to a playoff because I just don't think they've played very good defenses over the course.
Right.
Either the top two quarterbacks. I don't think either of them have played a great defense, and that sort of hurts you. So I think the postseason, hopefully the Senior Bowl. But I'm telling you, just watch him throw the ball, and you just watch it come out of his hand, and some of the balls with the anticipation and where it's on his guy. Like Restrepo, the receiver he has, is very impressive and all that. He is not throwing to like a bunch of stars, and the ball is spread all over the place. Like, I'm just saying, I'm not saying I'm necessarily sold on him that the draft happened today and the Browns are 8th pick or wherever they're at currently, that I would say on the table for Cam Ward. All I am saying is, of the quarterbacks I've seen, Cam Ward does the things that I think Kevin Stefanski would be all about, and I think Ken Dorsey would be all about, since part of the reason he came here was ultimately for Deshaun Watson. Cam Ward does so much from the pocket that's really impressive. I think he's actually worse. He can extend plays. I actually think he's worse extending plays. Like, I think when he throws on time and on rhythm and stuff, that's the stuff where you isolate that and you're like, this is why I could see the Browns loving him. I can't say for sure, but just some of the stuff that I've seen him succeed with, seen them able to do, watch him carve up his own defense, and you're just like, wow. I would just say watch him, keep watching him, and see if it doesn't shoot you back. Again, I'm not telling you that if the draft happens today, the Browns should take Cam Ward. In fact, for any number, I have any number of other ideas I'd probably prefer at this point. I'm just saying Cam Ward is a lot of fun, and I could see where the Browns are like, yeah, we can make this one work.
Yeah. So the
QB from Syracuse was great against Miami's craptacular defense. Miami Hurricanes defense was horrifying. It was like
Honda McCord.
Yeah,
Kyle Honda McCord.
Kyle McCord is very impressive in that game. I'm not going to take anything away from him. Miami's defense looked like the Cincinnati Bengals against the Steelers. It was god awful.
Deshaun, I don't know yet.
They should have, the Bengals should wear "My Cause, My Cleats" next week in their game. It should just say Bengals defense on it.
Yeah. Donate
to this cause because it's hopeless.
99 points in 3-game losing streak. That's remarkable. All right. Before we get out of here, I've seen enough of the Kadarius Toney experiment.
They're going to keep messing with it. I see why. I see why they're going to do it.
Nothing positive happened.
I'm with you. I don't even hate the decision he made on the reverse. I understand why he tried to cut it back. Cut it back. Now, they got 3 yards. It wasn't great. The Broncos defense was pretty fast. What I will say for Kadarius Toney is every time he goes in jet motion, the Broncos have to account for him. Sure. And in that sense, he is no different, even though people hated him. I will say this forever. For whatever you want to say about Anthony Schwartz, all the things he was not good at, the defense had to follow him around because at the very least, he could at least go fast, and you had to account for him. Browns, the way they could use Kadarius Toney, you have to at least account for him. And I'm with you. I'm sort of over it. They don't have another guy that does those things, which is why he sort of found himself as the de facto jet guy. The Browns clearly want this thing. They've been messing with it forever. They have not found that thing that has worked. I understand why they're going to keep seeing if they can get Kadarius Toney to do it. I would rather they just keep doing it in practice and not on Sundays, but I understand. I just don't know that it's going to pan out, at least for this season. If they can get him into like the program, the off-season program for next year, then I sort of have a little bit more understanding of what they're trying to do. I don't know if it's ever going to pan out. I remember watching him in college and being like, wow, this kid is electric. But I also, he was completely dysfunctional. So I'm not seeing the reward versus what they're doing, but the risk is zero.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's just funny. Every time they try to do something with him on the field, it fails. It seems like. So I think that's about it. We can get out of here. It's late. Jordan Akins, no catches tonight. That's interesting. Jamari Thrash had 2 catches. One of them was rather impressive for a first down. I continue to keep watching him. Michael Woods played a great game, 3 catches for 43 and caused that pass interference down the field. David Njoku, 9 balls for 52 yards, and if without drops, he would have had like 15.
Yeah, I mean, some of the drops are frustrating. Some of them are like bang bang plays, where it's like, yeah, he dropped it, but also he was going to gain nothing. So it's tough for me to really care. I'm more, if I'm going to get in my drops, it's the one it's from the one from last Thursday. It's the one where he drops the ball in the end zone, and the Browns fortunately get Jameis Winston to get the touchdown. But like those are the ones where you sit there and go, ugh. These ones, I think some of this you sort of price them into what he's going to give you. I wish he was better at it, but he's still a very good tight end, and he does cause a lot of problems that open up Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore and some of these other guys. As far as Michael Woods goes, very happy for his debut in terms of this season, but ultimately, I'm very excited. I'm very eager to get Cedric Tillman back in the lineup because I think he would have crushed against this defense.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I mean, but this game will go down though. This. If anything we have learned, and it's a hugely premium position, Jerry Jeudy looks legit in a Cleveland Browns uniform. And
he's phenomenal.
He looks unbelievable. And he went up against maybe arguably the best corner in the NFL tonight, like half the time. And he went for over 235 yards. And a touchdown, and could have been over 400 or over 300. Pardon me, if Jameis hits him on the first long ball. So, unbelievable.
Browns deserve a ton of credit for how they game planned against this defense. Early in the game, particularly, and they did throughout, but they really did a good job of motioning Jerry Jeudy to get away from Patrick Surtain, and then and did that well, and forced the Broncos to sort of reveal what they were doing on any given situation and how are they going to play it. And then they found a whipping boy and beat the crap out of Levi Wallace endlessly, which is what they should do. And then they took a couple smart shots at Patrick Surtain, which were good. That's not had they lost because they threw pick sixes to Patrick Surtain, you would have been like, yeah, he's going to do that. But they were good about avoiding it. The pick sixes they threw were stupid. But like Jaquan McMillan and Nick Benito, those are, you're not losing to their best guy. You are beating them everywhere else. They did that was good on their part. But yeah, Jerry Jeudy looks sensational and looks like, just everything the Browns hoped for to this point, he has been.
Anything change your opinion of whether he could be a legit one?
I mean, I'm still in the same boat of I would love to get a truer, a franchise receiver, a Justin Jefferson, that top guy. But in lieu of that, I'm more than happy to roll out with Jerry Jeudy as long as they have these other complementary pieces. In other words, Jerry Jeudy as your number one is great when you have David Njoku, when you have Elijah Moore, and potentially whatever else they're going to get from Jamari Thrash and Michael Woods and these other guys. So I'm happy with what they have, but I'm greedy. And would like to get even more and if we're gonna throw 58 times at Jameis Winston, you obviously want even more weapons.
Yep, kid from Arizona, right?
King Tut would be a lot of fun. King Tut is a lot of fun. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. A lot of time left in the draft process, but he's very good.
If you're gonna throw it 58 times with Jameis, that might make some sense.
He would give you the sort of that. He's not Randy Moss, but he has that sort of, you could chuck it, throw moon balls down the field, and it feels like King Tut would go get a few of them in that same mold. He's just not, nobody's the freak that Randy Moss was.
Denver was lucky Tillman was out. Might have made a difference in this game a little bit. All right, listen. Any parting words here tonight, Pete? It's the next day now. We are it's almost 1 a.m. Monday Night Football. Listen, Browns lost, tough game. Man, this was fun. This team fought. They still have a ton of pieces on defense. I still think Grant Delpit's a great player. You're going to get JOK back. You've got guys that are injured. You've got Myles Garrett. You've got Denzel Ward, who's really special. Yeah, you need to add. You need to supplement there. You need to supplement on the offensive line. There's questions to be answered at quarterback, although I do think that if you do enough around Jameis, you can win a lot of games. Thrilled with what the wide receiver core is turning out to be around Tillman, Judy, Moore if you bring him back, even Thrash and Michael Woods flashing tonight. So that's my takeaway. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's a lot of fun, and this season is what it is. The Browns are a very flawed football team with a lot of issues to address. I think they are fixable, but in the meantime, if they're going to go out, they have to play out the slate, as it were. I want them going. One, I want them to win more football games. I don't see a benefit in not winning, but I want to see these guys continue to develop. And again, and I said this coming out of, when Michael Keefe asked this question, what do you want to see from this team the rest of the way? I want to see them reveal who they are for next year. In fact, I'll stay what Joe Burrow said. Joe Burrow coming out of last game's their loss and basically saying these games are going to show who you can count on and who you can't. And I think there's certainly players that you can't count on, but I think there are more players you can, and the players you want to be able to count on are players that are showing themselves to be guys you can count on, which is really important because it's not just older veterans that are playing well. It is young guys. It's Jerry Jeudy's 25. Elijah Moore's still 24.
It's crazy.
Mahmoud Diabate is I think 22 or 23, somewhere in that neighborhood. He might be 24. I don't know. Isaiah McGuire is 22 or whatever. They've got a lot of these guys that you want to see continue to get reps. Ronnie Hickman, Cam Mitchell, a lot of these guys you want to see keep getting reps, keep going better, and just build into next season where you can feel like you've got a lot of these things. And if they can continue to add the right pieces around them, they're going to be in a good spot. Is that going to be good enough to win the Super Bowl? Probably not, but at least it should be back to where we are talking about the Browns in the playoffs.
Agreed. Ultimately, the goal should be the Super Bowl, but let's get there first, right? And then we can see what they can make of it. You never know. You just got to get hot at the right time. At least that's what somebody smart once told me. You've been watching the OBR post-game show. Browns lose 41-32 in Denver in what was a highly entertaining offensive game. And we are learning things about the personnel on this team in this stretch run. So that will be critical to the offseason. So we appreciate almost 1,200 of you hanging out here past midnight to talk Browns. Keep it locked at the OBR. We'll have coverage all week as we get ready for the rematch with Pittsburgh on Sunday. And this one's in Pittsburgh. So with that, we're going to get out of here. We're wishing everybody a good night. Keep it locked at the OBR. For Pete Smith, follow him at, what does that say? At Pete-Smith.bluesky.social. Yep, there it is on Blue Sky. Yep, got to go for the sweep of the Steelers. And Myles Garrett will need a big game against TJ Watt again if he wants a chance at Defensive Player of the Year. So with that, we're going to get out of here tonight. And thank you guys for hanging out till late or early, whatever you want to call it. My name's Brad Ward. That's Pete Smith. This has been the post-game show. We are out.